the world's largest potato. We've all heard Billie Eilish's song about it. But what is the truth behind the giant spud? Weighing almost 8 tons and measuring more than 18 feet long, it certainly deserves a spot in the Guinness Book of World Records. But where did it come from? It's not like you can just pop one out of the ground from your backyard garden, right? Well, yes, you can, according to Robert C. Newman, the man who discovered this behemoth in 1905. He was working his field in the small town of Yukon, Oregon, not too far from Idaho's famous Snake River Canyon, when he noticed something strange. The ground was moving. Not having much time to waste, Newman hopped into action. He enlisted the help of several of his fellow farmers to dig up whatever was causing the disturbance. And after 2 hours of hard work, they uncovered the biggest potato the world had ever seen. Newman was so proud of his massive mound of starchy goodness that he sent samples of it around the country. President Theodore Roosevelt received a piece, as did the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C., and the Field Museum of Natural History in Chicago. The rest of the potato was chopped up and shared among the local townspeople, who surely had a hell of a potato salad that year. But all this attention was too much for the humble spud. By 1926, the chunk in the Smithsonian had shriveled up and turned to dust, and the one in Chicago fared little better. However, thanks to the invention of modern technology, we can still see what remains of the world's largest potato today, which you might be surprised to learn is still sitting in Oregon. If you head over to the small town of Boardman, you can find it on display at the Umatilla Electric Cooperative. You might have to go through a few hoops in order to access it though, because it's mainly used as an insulator for equipment and not really an exhibit. So don't get your hopes up too high. There's nothing wrong with the French fry. They're crispy and delicious. They soak up ketchup beautifully. What more could you want? Turns out some people want a lot more. For instance, you can make a Greek gyro out of them by wrapping them in foil with tomatoes, onions, and sauce and baking them in the oven. Or you can go to Wendy's and get a baked potato instead. There are even recipes for French toast sticks made with French fries, although we don't know why you'd want to eat them for breakfast if they taste good. At any other time of day, who are we to judge? In 2017, a French chef named Sébastien Brasse made a 4-foot-long croquette out of 132 pounds of fries, and it stayed hot for an hour. No easy feat. But while fries are a beloved fast food staple, they haven't always been looked upon so favorably. During World War I, when American troops landed in France, they were served fries cut by local French women, but the soldiers weren't too impressed. It wasn't the flavor of the fries so much as their appearance. As author Eric Asimov wrote in his book French Fries, A Natural History, American soldiers didn't think they were properly cooked since they were soft inside and greasy outside. Of course, that's just another way of saying they weren't as crispy as they could be. But to the credit of those French women, they probably just didn't have the right tools to achieve that texture. They were likely cooking their wares on open fires with whatever fat happened to be on hand, which may have led to the greasiness the soldiers complained of. Regardless, once the war was over, the French women continued to cook and sell their wares to American customers. The only difference was they were doing it in New York City. Now known as French fried potatoes, these tasty treats became an instant hit and have been part of the Big Apple-esque culture ever since. Potato chips. These thin slices of crispy potato goodness have been enjoyed by millions upon millions of people since they were invented in Saratoga Springs, New York in 1853. That's according to George Crumb, a chef who was trying to please a customer who complained his French fries were too thick. And by making them thinner, he also made them crispier. From there, it was a simple matter of slicing up a potato, frying it, salting it, and voila, you got yourself a snack. But wait a minute, that doesn't sound very healthy, and it's not. Even though you can get fancy chips made with sweet potatoes and yams, chips are generally considered a junk food, something you grab when you need a quick bite to eat and don't care about nutrition. With that said, though, researchers at the University of Michigan found that eating salty snacks like chips can trigger a rewarding sensation in the brain. So perhaps it's all about balance. You shouldn't indulge too often, but a chip or two won't hurt every once in a while. Just ask Dr. James W. Anderson, professor of medicine at the Baylor College of Medicine. He believes that eating anything you enjoy can be part of a healthy diet as long as you keep it in moderation. To be fair, though, chips aren't just fun to eat, they're also fun to throw at people. If you've ever done that, we suggest you stop immediately. While it may seem funny, you could end up hurting someone badly enough to send them to the hospital, so don't take the chance. Also, you should probably avoid throwing them at walls, as it's been proven to increase blood pressure. Then again, you might want to throw a chip or two at anyone who tells you that the potato is bad for you. The history of French fries goes back centuries before World War I, and unlike the French, they weren't the only ones to invent them. For example, in Belgium, fries are known as frites, but they're called that in English-speaking countries as well. In fact, according to Time magazine, there's evidence of Belgian peasants cutting up and frying potatoes as early as the 17th century. Of course, they probably didn't do it in the same way we think of today, but the concept was the same. Fast forward a couple of centuries and you have Thomas Jefferson adding fried potatoes to the menu at the White House. He acquired the recipe from his enslaved chef, likely one of the many African Americans whose culinary talents helped shape American cuisine. Still, most accounts of the potato's introduction to America give credit to Belgian immigrants who brought the treat over with them when they fled a potato famine in Europe. These frites were typically served with beer, a combination that has become a common sight at sports games and fairs across the country. However, there's another version of the story that claims it was a pair of brothers who invented the waffle fry. According to legend, they were visiting Belgium when they saw how much people loved frites. So they bought a fry cutter and began selling their own fries on street corners in New York City. Only problem was they were competition to the established vendors and quickly found themselves in a fight. Someone pulled out a gun and ended the Waffle Fry Brothers' run in the city forever. At least, that's what some people say, and while it makes for a great story, there's no evidence to support it. The truth is, nobody knows exactly who invented the waffle fry or how it came to America. But we do know that the Belgian Congo was one of the major exporters of the product in the early 20th century. In fact, during World War I, the United States imported nearly 8 million pounds of frozen fries from the Congo. Since then, waffle fries have become a popular side dish in restaurants and have branched out into different varieties, such as steak fries and shoestring fries. And who knows what the future holds? Maybe someday we'll have waffle potato chips. If you thought World War II soldiers would pass on dessert, think again. During the Battle of the Bulge in December 1944, an army cook came up with a sweet treat to boost morale. It was so good, in fact, that it became known as the Christmas truce pudding. According to historian Stephen E. Ambrose, this pudding consisted of peeled raw potatoes mixed with eggs, sugar, butter, flour, milk, salt, and rum. It was then put into jars and baked for an hour and a half until it was done. Soldiers described the taste as similar to a blancmange, a British dessert made with milk, flour, and sugar. This recipe was then passed down to the men who kept the tradition alive throughout the war. They even managed to make it during the Battle of the Bulge, despite the freezing temperatures and heavy artillery fire. After all, how bad could it be? One soldier recalled, "We were getting shelled pretty heavily, and I saw Johnny Baker open his mess kit and start fixing some kind of breakfast. He had gotten hold of a jerry can full of rum. We watched him fix breakfast, and then we went back to our foxholes. In a few minutes he hollered, 'Anybody want some breakfast?' Hell, yeah!" We filed in line and he passed out bowls of hot potato pudding. So, it wasn't the best tasting dessert, but it sure was the most heartwarming. After learning about all the different ways to prepare a potato, Are you ready to cook one yourself? If so, stay tuned because we're about to teach you how to make a baked potato from scratch. All you need is a large baking potato, vegetable oil, salt, pepper, and a kitchen timer. First, wash the potato under cold water and dry it with a clean kitchen towel. Place the potato directly on the oven rack and bake it at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 1 hour and 15 minutes. If you want your baked potato to last longer, you can wrap it in aluminum foil. Once it's done, let it cool for a few minutes before poking it with a fork. We recommend putting some butter on top, along with salt and pepper to taste. And that's it. Your delicious baked potato is ready to eat. But if you want to add more toppings, feel free to do so. Sour cream, chives, cheese, bacon bits, the possibilities are endless. Just make sure not to tell anyone that you learned how to cook this from a video game.